All right, today's topic is this. The first 2 weeks we were talking about the murders of those two African American men, what happened in Dallas. This topic is not going away, obviously, because it continues to reverberate all over the corners of the United States. In fact, today, just as we're sitting down to go over this video, we saw the news online, of course, of what's going on in Germany right now and the officers being killed. So even as we speak, one event almost like leaches into the other, spills over into the other, and this is how powerful this topic has become literally worldwide. What I want to do today is this. Where do we go from here? What's going to happen? What's going to happen for our children, our children's children, and what will the relationship be between the police and the communities that they serve? I'm getting past, and I know obviously we want to focus on African Americans and Latinos, but police officers for everyone that they serve, including in particular minorities. What's going to be the relationship that's going to happen down the road? So I want to clarify a couple of things. Just this past week alone, and of course we are, terribly sorry on what happened in Baton Rouge, having 3 officers gunned down, literally, by someone, who had a hatred and a bias against police officers. And again, at no point do we condone that. It's insane, it's violent. It does not do anything to promote what you're trying to actually change. And all it does is reinforce stereotypes that does nothing for the person that really wants to get the help that they truly need. So again, terrible, terrible tragedy what happened in Baton Rouge. And if what we think happened in Germany today, our hearts go out to those officers as well. Here's the point I want to bring out though, and I don't think people fully understand where things are going in terms of access. You had the case today, this past week in North Miami Beach, where you had a caretaker, when the video of course has gone viral, it's been seen millions of times around the world. You had a person that Charles Kinzie was explaining in the scene in the hospital bed where he's like this, his hands were up and you could hear on the video, he was shot by police. And the question is, again, you look at it as we've talked about before, training. This was an autistic young adult. He was a caretaker and doing the best to get this young person back into the house that he came from. And unfortunately, the situation was totally taken out of context. And the statement released by the police from North Miami was that they were actually trying to strike the autistic young adult versus Charles. But the officer, thank God, was a poor shot and only struck Kinzie, which he never should have done in the first place. There was a comment made, it was interesting, there was a comment made by someone who had spent over 50 years with Miami-Dade police. And his comment was, retired firearms expert Robert Hollister, spent 50 years with Miami-Dade police, says it's hard to perceive how the situation was misjudged. But it was, grossly, these are his words. I wish there was something positive I could say. You arrive on scene and a guy's playing with a toy truck. Why do you bring out the assault rifle? Hollister asked. You can't get enough in training when you're dealing with lethal force. This is as bad a situation as I've ever seen. It's a good thing he was obviously a lousy marksman. And the point is, you look at it from different angles. They were coming out of a rehab program. Be aware of the surroundings of the area. Understand where he came from. And if you don't see anything that's hostile, take your time, approach gingerly. We're not going to get into the whole scene going over the video bit by bit. But again, as he said, you can never get enough training when you're dealing with lethal force. And that's what we're talking about over and over again. More training. And at the same time also, everything is being captured on video. So be aware that whatever you're doing is going to be seen because everyone is shooting. Now, next one. There was another case that came out, this happened actually last summer, is that an officer is talking to a woman, and her name is Brianna King, and it turns out that she was pulled out of her car and thrown to the ground. You see this on the video. It's coming on from the cameras. So this officer says to her, why he was talking to King, who was pulled over for speeding about race while driving her to jail. Again, this is all taped. Why are so many people afraid of black people? Spradlin asks. King replies that she's also trying to figure that out. And his comment to her is, I can give you a really good idea why it might be that way. He said, violent tendencies. Spradlin goes on to say that I don't blame white people for being afraid because of violence in the black community. Some of them, because of their appearance and whatnot, some of them are very intimidating, he says. And what did the newspaper identify her as her occupation? Elementary school teacher. About as non-threatening as you can get. So, the chief of the Austin Police Department, Chief Acevedo, said he didn't even know about the video and it should have been given to him and told to him. It only certainly resurfaced last week because the newspaper released it. And what's interesting also is that I become fearful to live my life, King told the newspaper. I'd rather stay home. I become afraid of the people who are supposed to protect me and take care of me. And then there's another scene we also have it where Officer Brian Richter orders her out of the car and it shows him nearly throwing her into an adjacent truck while trying to place her under arrest. Again, training. How do you approach a situation that you get so out of control that you lose all kinds of focus? Now, there was a town hall meeting last week where the president was talking to the nation about what's going on with this lack of trust between communities where police are having to serve and are supposed to serve, and people's reaction to them. And what he said, that his intention over his last few months in office is to look at best practices and listen to departments and build up trust with local communities. He said there is no contradiction between making sure police have all the tools they need to do their job safely and in building trust between police and the communities that they serve. And this is something that he understands is an issue that needs to be a priority. Now, there was a thing that after the deaths of Michael Brown and Eric Garner, President Obama called for a 21st century task force on policing. And the task force nailed out a number of important recommendations, which were best practices as a roadmap. So what was they saying? That they said, looking at best practices to share with police departments across the country. What else must happen? If we are to make real change and help ensure an end to senseless and preventable police killings, we have to have reforms, such as increasing the use of special prosecutors in police misconduct investigations, implementing improved and robust law enforcement training, including de-escalation, and mandating data collection on police misconduct and fatalities and injuries involving the police to ensure transparency. And here are two police chiefs I'm going to bring up now, two different articles that have tried to understand what's going on and what is their reaction as police chiefs to work with the communities that they serve. And here's the response from Chief David Brown, who is the head police officer, head Chile. He's the chief of police in Dallas, Texas. He said when he took over in 2010, and this is from an article by Eugene Robinson, complaints of excessive force by officers have dropped by nearly 2/3. Police shootings have been halved from 23 in 2012 to just 11 in 2015, and only one so far this year. He said that he happens to be black, but as he said, that's not the most important thing, the most significant thing about him, according to the article. What's important is that Brown is quick to understand that the chasm between police officers and young men of color was real and that it could be bridged. He said, here's a problem, I have to be part of the solution. So what does his officers do? They undergo training on how to de-escalate conflicts rather than heat them up. They learn to speak calmly when approaching suspects instead of immediately barking orders. And when there is a police presence shooting, uniform presence around the scene is ramped down as soon as possible. The department, unlike many others, keeps track of police shootings and publishes that figure on the city's website. And Brown keeps looking for ways to improve relations between police and the community, realizing that diversity is not a destination but a shared journey. We all have to work together. This country, white, black, brown, yellow, you have to learn to work together if you're ever going to see significant change. Understands that. And finally, this comment I thought was interesting because someone is saying the obvious. He said, police need to acknowledge this feeling among African American men and work to find a solution, said Chuck Drago, a white former police chief in Oviedo, Florida. Oviedo. Perception is reality. If people believe that, then we as the police have to do something to prove that wrong, Drago said. There's a lot of ways to do that, but we can't ignore it. We can't say it's not true, you're mistaken, there's no problem. And let me clarify this now from a counseling perspective. From counseling thousands of people from all walks of life, all colors, all ages, if you're not willing to admit you have a problem, I don't care how much you spend on therapy, how much medication you take, if you go to an inpatient program, outpatient program, you can be in therapy for decades. You will never, ever improve. Because the talk therapy, the medication, the lifestyle, if you're not willing to admit that you have a problem and that you need to change, it's a waste of time. And I've told this to thousands of people who are suffering because they're in bad relationships or in bad situations, and they often say to me, well, I try to talk to him or to her, they don't listen, they don't want to change. And I always say to them, then what are you doing, staying in this situation? Because if that person's not willing to change, there's not going to be any growth. And you have to move on. Now, growth has a lot of different meanings to it, a lot of different perspectives. But here's the case of two cases, two different parts of the country, Florida and Texas. And here, I come onto the scene, I'm looking at a guy talking to a person saying, hey, is everything okay? Oh, you're from that facility across the street. Does he want to go back in? Does he want some water? Can I get him a candy bar? Let me talk to him. He's autistic. Where was the understanding of how to work with the mentally ill? And before the scene of being surrounded, I saw the toy car. And in the case in Texas, in Austin, grabbing a person, flinging them to the ground, what's the purpose? You got the speeding ticket already. Give the ticket, give the predictable warning, please slow down next time, move on. Why go from 1 to 10? And the thing about the counseling so much is that I've done sessions as little as one time. I did the assessment and the person says, you know what? I know the truth. And that's what I often tell people in counseling after I finish talking to them, because I'll ask them like a million questions. Is there anything I can answer for you? Anything I can answer you? Anything I can answer you? Anything I can answer for you? And they'll say, no, you've cleaned up everything for me. And here's what I tell them. I don't care what your life was like before, but now you can never say again for the rest of your life, you don't know the truth. So is your life messed up because of PTSD, because of trauma, because of neglect, because of abuse, physical, sexual, because of drug addiction? No argument. I'm explaining to you why you did what you did. So from now on, whether you're 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, I don't like working with old people because there's not much you can change at 85, 80. But when you work with someone, say, under the age of like 60, 70, okay, I don't want seniors to start, writing in nasty comments, but the older you get, the less likely you're going to change or have the ability to change. And what I'm saying is if you don't have that ability to say, I got a problem, I got to work on it, nothing is ever going to happen. I always tell people who say to me, oh, Bruce, you helped me, I made so much progress, I'm so much better. I say, no. You did the heavy lifting. You did it. You're trapped in a lousy marriage, I'll explain why you are. If you choose to stay, it's your decision. But now you know why you've done what you've done. You're a drug addict, you're addicted to alcohol, addicted to opiates, benzos, no problem. I'll explain to you why that is. And then at that point, if you do want to change, you can do it, but you can never say you don't know the reasons why you do self-destructive actions. Same thing with the police and law enforcement in general, or anyone that works in public service. Today, because of the phone, because of the laptop, everything you do is being recorded. How you come across is going to be very obvious to millions of people that are going to watch it. So there is some kind of issue, there is some kind of problem. And for these police chiefs, opposite ends of the spectrum, to say, you know what? Perception is reality. And that's why I tell people who are mentally ill also. I say, if your perception is that you're being mistreated, where you're mentally ill, where you're hearing voices, where you felt that you were aggrieved, perception is reality. So if people believe that, then we as the police have to do something to prove that wrong. We can't ignore it. We can't say it's not true, you're mistaken. Growth comes from acceptance, growth comes from admittance, and growth comes from saying, I need to make a change in what I'm doing. And here's the thing. You're not happy with your local police force? Join it. Get involved. You're not happy, with the lack of mental health services in your community? Go to social work school. There's no shortage of dysfunction. Trust me on that one. How many people do we even have in mental health? Honestly, very, very, very few. You think you can do a better job as a psychologist, Ken? Join. Your kid gets an IEP and happy with the school district? Become a teacher. Become a special ed facilitator. Get a master's in special ed. In other words, join. Get involved. Go to school. Get letters behind your name and get to the point where you can literally make that difference because you care enough to try. As someone said to me, I live in America. I'm not moving. I'm not going to Asia or Latin America to hide. You really can't hide anyway. I live in the good old USA. This is my home, my country. I'm not going anywhere. I have to work to make it better. So I have to get involved. As I tell all the patients I've ever worked with, I got these plans. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I say to them, don't just talk the talk. Walk the walk. And TWT, time will tell. You got plans, you got dreams, you got aspirations. TWT. Then I'll know if you're serious or not. I'll know after 3 to 5 years if you accomplish anything. TWT, time will tell. And then I'll know if you're really serious about changing your life. Because most people will talk and talk and talk. They don't do anything that's going to change things. And the police need to look at how they're handling themselves. And there are plenty of officers that do a great job and put up with a lot of nonsense every day. And we salute those officers. But it's the ones that need more training, more understanding of what they're working with, understanding themselves that's lacking, that has to be looked at and adjusted to make it better for everyone, that everyone feels that things are equal, that they're the same. So I'm going to close with this. Change comes from within, and if you want to be part of the change, be part of it. At a certain point, protests are great, rallies are great, but where's the rallies going to take you to? Where the protest going to take you to, unless you make change that's going to be effective and guess what? Long-lasting. You don't want to be short-term, you want to be long-term. Everyone, again, thank you for watching. This is part 3. I want to kind of clarify, bring everything together. But again, we want your comments, both good and bad. We love them. More comments, we enjoy them. But everyone, again, thank you for watching. This is Bruce Mufson, LCSW, Sunridge of Nevada. And again, more things are coming forward, more things are happening, and we appreciate those that continue to watch our videos. Thank you.